Alright, I just realized I've been slacking. I have not been making any videos on the Camaro. You just start getting gung-ho on cutting and grinding and drilling and fitting and forget about making a video. So, Walter, you're supposed to remind me.
Oh.
Alright.
Slaving away myself.
Yeah, right. Alright, well, on the Camaro, let's see, when it first showed up, they had the trunk pan and it had a frame, had both frame rails in it, but they were just kind of screwed in there and they weren't screwed in there right. So I had to remove them, trim some things, slide part of the frame on the, yeah, let me just slide this camera around. I see, scam. You just camera whore, huh? Camera hog. Alright, well, let me turn the camera around. Yes, Sam, I know. Alright, so on the front mount up there, it was bent in. This car had been rear-ended pretty good at one point, where the original frame rail was buckled there, and then it was kind of pushed in the front mount. So I had to slide hammer that all out, and then get the frame rails fitted properly. You can see they fit nice and tight up in there. So that's all screwed to the trunk pan, in which this is the first Camaro I've ever done. And unlike Mopars, the trunk pan goes in first and the frame rails go into that. Because you cannot get the trunk pan in with frame rails on it. So same thing on the side, that's all fitted and good. Everything's copper primer done, or everything is all the joints where the two metals are going to be at is all been copper weld-through primered. See, we got this all screwed in place, and they had cut too much out of here, so I'm going to have to make a filler piece there. And then got this all in place, which I had to take a round die and kind of slide or hammer this in because it didn't have the same contour as the original, and I had to relieve it a little bit. So then it would at least somewhat line up to the bottom, in which I've checked the measurements, and it's that same, the original is the same as this side. So now this is the same. This doesn't have as much angle in it. Like this is, oh, how am I going to explain this? Okay. This should be close to 90 degrees right here. It's not. So what that did is that's causing the quarter panel right here to be longer. If that was a correct, like original, then this quarter panel here would be pulled forward because it has more degree right there. As you can see, it's about an 1/8 inch back. So I'm gonna have to do something with that. And also there's a gap there. See that gap? Well, this thing fits everywhere else good. So roof, door jamb, rear window, and it's tucked up tight in the wheel well. So as you can see, it's all, there's no gap there. So, but I've got like a 1/2 inch, yeah, not even a 1/2 inch, maybe like 3/8 of an inch right here. So what I have to do is I have to cut this line down the quarter panel and then make a filler piece, drop this down, make a filler piece, weld that in. Actually, I'll probably just make a whole new lower piece that's longer. That way I don't have to have a, that way there's only one weld line instead of 2 weld lines in a filler piece. Yeah, that's probably what I'll do. I'll just make a longer piece. Yeah, so the wheel well's all screwed in place. And what I'm doing right now is the owner wanted to try and save this quarter panel, but it's hammered. I mean, it's all rotted down here. This whole area here is just beat to shit. It's got so much brazing in because the car was repaired once before. You know, it's cracked and bent down here, and then it's cracked up here. It's damaged here. So I'm like, you know what, dude, just put a new quarter on it. So what he did is he brought me a new quarter today. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that quarter panel on here. So today's goal is to get this quarter panel off, and I'm gonna get all this removed. Y'all get the seam all cleaned up in there, get this all cleaned up, get this whole thing cleaned up, ready for the new quarter panel to go on. And that's what's going on. But Walter says he wants Sonic. He wants a cherry limeade, so probably have to go run an errand to go get some cherry limeade. I kind of want one too. I want a mango limeade. But yeah, it's coming together. That's what's going on with Camaro at the moment. Alright, so we're actually underneath the Camaro right now. You see I'm just using a regular drill bit. I'm not actually using a spot weld cutter. Mostly because mine are all burned up and I let someone borrow them. And I'm waiting for the new one to show up. But if you just use a drill bit as a pilot, go in just a little bit, not all the way through, then use a thicker drill bit you know, probably the same size as a spot weld, and then just kind of go, actually one size bigger would work better. You know, say a 3/8 drill bit. So you don't go all the way through it, you just go through enough to break the weld, which it works pretty good. Alright, see this piece here, I'm not too worried about just drilling that all the way through, because I'm actually going to plug weld from the back side. Let me get my hand right there, there we go. There's two pieces here. There's the quarter panel and then there's the inside window regulator panel. So I'm not worried about just drilling all the way through, because what I'll do is when I put the new quarter panel up here, there's not going to be any holes in the new quarter panel, but there will be holes in the window regulator panels. So then I'll just plug weld from the back side, and then so from the outside it'll look like stock spot welds, because when you plug weld from the inside or on the back side of something, it actually sucks in the metal just in a round circle just as you're welding, so it kind of looks like a factory spot weld. That's exactly what I'm going to do with the trunk pan too. I'm going to weld it from the bottom on the frame rails, so when you pop the trunk, it's going to look like factory spot welds. I won't have to grind no welds down. Well, let me finish drilling the sucker out. Well, time to remove the quarter panel. I can just go ahead and open this thing. Alright, no, I'm not that badass. So, what we do here is, see, there's a cut line. This is part of the original quarter panel right here. I cut it along the edge all the way around the quarter panel. That way I can chisel away at the spot welds underneath that. And plus there's some welds. Well, I'm going to get this vacuum and get all that sand out of there, but that's from when they sandblasted it. But there's some spot welds underneath all that sand they need to get. And then we'll go ahead and chisel away at the all the wheel well lip right there to get rid of that part of the quarter panel. Same thing here. We'll chisel away at that. Drill everything out. We'll chisel away at this piece here. Cut it right on the edge. That way it's easier to get it all out. If you try and pull the quarter panel off in one piece, yeah, that's stupid. Alright, well, time to start chiseling. Well, a little more progress on the Camaro. Trying to fit this rear pillar panel right now. But I have to do lots of beating to get this thing to fit right. And how you make it fit right is with a medium-sized hammer, and then you hit it with a bigger hammer. So the problem is, you can tell I've done beating here, and I've had to put more of a bend right there. So that way, it'll line up on the backside. You can tell it's tight gap there, then you go over here and you got a big gap and you got a big gap. That's because this Chinese shit is not bent correctly. It's not the stamps that they make this Chinese shit with is not the exact same stuff that they make the actual real parts with. So it's kind of what we're stuck with, but whatever, at least we have this instead of nothing. But yeah, so lots of beating going on right now. And then more progress. Got this quarter panel fitted. It's all screwed in place. Kind of looks cool. Almost to just leave it like that, like Edward Scissorhands Camaro. It's all fitted. So that actually fits pretty good. I need to get this filler panel done. That way I can put the tail panel on, get the Dutchman panel on, and start fitting the trunk lid pieces. See how that's going to go. But yeah, that's what's happening right now. I gotta do some more hammering, so I guess you can watch me beat the crap out of it. Here we go. Alright, well, here's how we make Chinese shit fit. Yep. See, there's too much of a gap on the top side. Well, you can take this and hit this with it. Almost. Almost. That'll work. Alright. Actually go a little bit more. Alright. Where's the... Right around there. Right in the middle. Well, it's a lot better. I think what we'll do now is just put a screw to it, suck it in. Yep, let me get that ready. Alright, now that I got it where I want it to be, let's go ahead and screw it in place. Now what I'm going to do is, with this guy here, I'm going to draw lines on the back side. Oops, just flung my holder. Well, I think I already drew some lines. Let me turn the camera. Alright. So, what I'm going to do here is when I pull this guy off, I'm just going to drill holes. And they're going to be my weld hole, my plug weld holes. So if I mark this guy, I'll know where to drill my holes at. There, side, that one, up, over, oh, that one didn't really change, so, there, I'm trying to work and be a camera guy at the same time, which sucks. Alright, so we are all good on that. Now I need to move on to the corners. Alright, next. Well, a lot of times when I get chugging away at the car, I just forget to press record and just start going away at working. So, as you can tell, you've missed a lot of steps. And you missed a lot of hammering and thrashing and beating and ratchet strapping and grinding and cutting to get this shit to fit right. So, let's see, where do we start? Okay, had to set the quarter panels in on both sides by loosening the screws on the trunk extensions. And then this guy didn't fit worth a shit, so it was all folded. It was like all damaged from like shipping. It looked like it was all folded back, and these corners. Look at this big ass gap here in the corner, just to get this to line up with this. That's junk. And if you look here, see that's lined up. So you got this big ass gap right there. That's just ugly as shit. So I'm gonna have to fill that in. Stick some hammering to get all this to line up right, which I'm gonna have to knock this corner in just a hair. And then I had a big gap here that I stick my thumb in between on the tail panel. So I had to stick a ratchet strap from pretty much around the quarter panel down into the car and suck it so I could pull the whole quarter panel in and close up that gap. And then once I got that gap closed up, I go in there with some vice grips and clink, 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 and then screw it together so that way it holds its position. And right now, well, obviously right here, I had to reshape it a little bit. It was decided the quarter panel actually had more of a drop to it. Where am I at? Oh, there I am. The quarter panel had more of a drop to it than this did. So I had to reshape that, and then had to reshape this a little bit. This is the part of the rail, the trunk gutter rail. So right now I'm just kind of mocking everything up in place. So that way I can put basically like dowel pin screws. So that way when I take it all apart to drill all the holes for all the plug welding, that, and I'm going to take these quarter panels off, and I'm going to blizzard skin the inside of the entire quarter panel. That way it's sound deadened. Yeah. Well, yeah, you saw the thrashing I had to do to the filler panel, or the frame rail tie connector underneath the tail panel. So I took a lot of bashing to get that to fit. Right now, I'm working on the other gutter. So, problem is, see there's a gap there? Part of the problem is I need to pull this out, but also this has too much bend in it. So, how I fix that bend, since that's just a flat piece right there, I can fix that by shrinking the outer edge. So let me show you how. Alright, so here's a shrinker stretcher. This is actually a shrinker. That's the stretcher. So you stick this guy in here, like so. I want to take some bend out of it. So what it's going to do is it's going to compress the metal into itself. Look at the jaws. See how it squeezes? What it does is it clamps down the metal and it has teeth that compress the metal. So it's actually going to take some bend out of this guy. I can get my piece back in there. Open up. There it goes. Alright. So I'm going to do it right in the middle of the bend. It shouldn't take much. See if you can actually watch it. Pressing down. Yeah, it took a little bit. I don't know if you can actually see it, but it did take some of that bend out of there. Let's go see. Look at this poor charger right here. Oh, this guy's going to get put back together here pretty soon. Alright, let's see how close I am now. I know this is going to get pushed back a little bit, but if I kind of guesstimate on lining that up, yeah, that should be good right there. So, let me go ahead and mount this piece real quick. It's only take a minute. I have to wedge it. I have to sandwich it in there, under here, under there, and over this. It's kind of hard to look at what I'm doing and look at what you're seeing at the same time. So if you notice, I'll be talking about something, and this camera's not even pointed at it. So, bear with me. Not no professional, just trying to share some of the shit I do. Alright, well, I'll mount this. Alright, I think I'm about done on this thing today. So as you can see, Frankenstein right here has actually turned out alright. So actually I closed, the trunk lid is perfectly centered on the car right now. So it's 4.5 inches from the trunk lid to the edge of the quarter. Same thing on the other side, 4.5 inches from the trunk lid to the edge of the quarter. And let me show you this ugliness of a gap I have right here. So the trunk lid is centered, and stick the stick right here, I can almost turn it around. That's a 1/2 inch right there. That's a no buenos. Alright, so now we'll go to the modified side, which I have cut it loose, pulled it over, and I've also done some hammer dollying on the inside to get rid of some of that, that it was kind of tapered out. So what I did is I made it to where it's straight up and down like it's supposed to be, and then, long story short, fix the shit. Alright, see now, we got about 3/16 of an inch, which I think that's factory. I'm not sure. I'll have to measure my Camaro tomorrow. I think that's factory. I don't see the factory having 1/8 inch gaps. Yeah, so that's all closed up. Frankenstein right here. I'll weld that all up tomorrow. How you coming, Walt? Yeah. Well, you could have shoved the car back over to get more room.
I didn't know if you were bringing names, just stand back here.
Oh. Yeah, so Walter's been working on the Gittix. We're going to call it a night. How many hours you got today, Walt? Alright. Yep. But this looks more better. I wouldn't quite call it tits yet till I'm done with it. And another thing what I'm probably going to have to do is, let me see what you're seeing. Okay. See how it's kind of a point right here? It's not actually a smooth turn. The contour, it actually comes to kind of a point. Right there is the point of the radius. And AMD will probably be like, oh, you modified it, da 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 da, which they comment on one of my other videos that I did on AMD, and which I like I said before, I appreciate AMD, but you know, stop trying to say your shit is 100% when it is not. So you see that comes to a point right there. Yes, I modified it, but it's that I didn't modify that. And we'll come to the unmodified spot, and look, it's a point. You know, that doesn't follow the same contour as the trunk lid. As you can see, the edge of the quarter panel tapers out a lot more than it does, say, here. You know, which, whatever. I mean, what I'll probably end up doing is cutting that right there, and then pulling this lip forward, cutting here a little bit, pulling, no, I'll probably just do it to this one. Cut the lip, pull it forward. That way it'll follow the contour of the trunk lid. It's all just little petty shit. I mean, you could fill it with filler and call it done, but I don't know, I like metal. So, yeah, nothing bad about AMD. It's good stuff. Just gotta tweak it a little bit. Actually, I don't even know if this is AMD or not. I didn't buy this stuff. I think it is. Whatever. See the big gap here I'm gonna have to fill. No big deal. But see, that gap there was on the bottom here, which I don't want it there. So you can see I started to fill it. Basically, you put a piece of copper back there as a backing, and then you weld on the copper because it'll use it as a filler. So, but all I want to do is tack this in place, so when I remove it, I can fully weld it and call that done. Well, I'll get back on this thing tomorrow. See you. Another day on the Camaro. Well, you saw yesterday, or well, the last video, you saw I had all these clamps up here. It was all Frankensteined out. And what I'm doing is I'm filling a, it's probably it's 1/8 inch gap in some spots and probably 3/16 on the other. And you know, instead of actually making a little sliver to go in there, that'd be more of a hassle than, like I showed before. Actually, this thing's still kind of warm. Piece of copper plate. It'll allow you can weld right to it, but the weld won't stick to it. So what I do is I stick it underneath here. So I can find a clean spot. There you go. See how you can see the copper right here? You put that on the underside and you weld right to the top of it, and it creates a filler. So then you just pull the copper loose and it doesn't stick to it at all. So basically it just creates an area where you can just start filling in weld. And it works really good. And it doesn't, instead of like just trying to fill the whole thing with wire without nothing to back it, it actually creates a flat backing. So I don't know how well the lighting is going to be up here, but as you can see, the welds are all flat on the bottom side. So you can actually grind down the inside flat, which wouldn't take a whole lot, and then you just grind down the outside. So it works pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and finish this up, and then I got to do the same thing to the other side, and then I got to tear the whole car apart again, just so I can drill all my holes. And I'm going to lizard skin the inside of the quarter panels. Yeah, not really making anything on this car. This is more of a favor for a friend. So, but he's a good friend. He does a lot for me. So I use his shop a lot, paint booth and everything. So that's kind of a favor. But we're going to try and get this thing slammed out. Well, let me get on finishing that. All right, here's round 2 on this side of the quarter panel to close up that gap. This gap you see here, that's how much I've shoved it over, because that's the actual size of the cut line. You know, it's a 6, well, that's about, well, that's small. I think the size of the wheel is 35 thousandths. So look at that line compared to that. So that's how much I've shoved it over, which is probably, actually we got to take measure right here. Ugh. And it is, let's see, yeah, so I figured about 3/16. So I shoved it over 3/16, and we have 3/16 gap. Let's go over this side. We have roughly, dang it, lay down. Alright, so we have 3/16 gap. Alright, so now we have 3/16 on both sides, which the factory gap on my charger right there is 1/4 inch. So 3/16, we're going to live with that. TJ wants it tighter than that. Well, he can weld some welding wire to the end of this thing. So that's what he's getting. It was a 1/2 inch. So to go from a 1/2 inch to 3/16, yeah, shut up. That's what I'm going to tell him. All right. Well, now I can go ahead and start welding this up. Yep, just like before, I stuck a piece of copper underneath there and zap, 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 all the way down. Just like that side was. Oh yeah, you guys didn't see this side after it was all finished. The, not as good as I want. I mean, I've done much better. Got a little bit of ripples here, but that's what a hammer and filler's for. So, this side should turn out much better. That side was just trying to figure out how to do it. This side, you know, the first time, I did the same thing on that GTX, but the way the quarter panels are is different, and I was able to do it easier. This one's a little bit different, so I tried it a different way, which experimented on that side. This side should be good. Alrighty, well, get to it. Alright, so when you're filling a gap like this, you always want to make sure that they're on the same plane when you're welding them. See how they're all even across, or there's no height difference in sheet metal, because you're butt joining two pieces of sheet metal that are going to warp. So what I'll do is I'll weld one. It takes forever. I'll weld one, and I'll use a screwdriver to kind of pry or maneuver the sheet metal up or down wherever it needs to go. So it takes forever to weld something like this, but when it's all done, you grind it down and it'll look just like that. Actually, that's my worst side, but this will look better. So, yep, back to it. Well, another day on the Camaro. As you can see, it's blown apart again, or at least one side of it is. I actually started welding some of it together because it was all fitted, it fit good. I'll show you a picture of the trunk lid included into this when you see it on the car, or everything. I had to close all the gaps up. But when I took it apart, you know, you want to epoxy all this because you can't get all that when the quarter panel's on it. You just can't. So I went ahead and epoxied all this. I taped up all the areas, right? Weld through primered all the areas I'm going to be welding to. Taped them up. As you see, that's what some of the copper color is here and there. Yeah, wheel well and all that. So that's all epoxied up, ready for the quarter panel to go back on it. And then the quarter panel itself, actually, yeah, I had to lengthen this gap right here on the bottom of the quarter, about a 1/4 inch, because it had a gap from the rocker to the quarter panel. So maybe you can probably tell on the other side. Now it's all taped up, but yeah, there's a 1/4 inch of weld right there. See, it's all scuffed up right now because I'm going to be spraying lizard skin inside of it, which is like an insulator and a sound deadener. So best time to do it is when the quarter panel's off. You can spray the entire thing. So I'm going to spray the entire thing, that way the whole quarter panel is sound deadened. And then I'll put the quarter panel back on the car. So I'm going to go ahead and finish masking this off, spray it, back on the car, start welding. And then I gotta do the same thing on the other side. So that's what B's happening right now. Alright, well, I got this rear valence filler panel, or whatever the hell GM wants to call this piece. It's all drilled out, ready to weld on. All the hole, everything up top, it's all drilled out, and it's primered on both sides and the bottom lip, so that way when the valence comes up there, I can just butt joint it, or I can just lay it over it and weld it on. So that's all ready to go. I can go ahead and start welding that now. Well, it was another day on the Camaro, and I have to apologize. You guys missed a whole bunch of steps. I was just cracking down and hustling and trying to get this damn car done. So, yeah, forgot to record a bunch of stuff. The whole car is assembled right now. What I had done is I had to, well, you saw me drill out, prep, primer, and lizard skin the 1/4 panel. The other side was the same process. You didn't really miss anything. Same process. I got the insides of the quarters and the regulators. Those are all, well, you can't see shit, but the insides of the regulators are all prepped out, copper primered, and ready to start welding. You see, I got a big old bar welded to the car right here. The reason I did that is when assembling the quarters and the tail panel and all that stuff, the quarter panel here is kind of sprung out, and that's with everything fitting correctly. The trunk lid gap's perfect, everything. It's just that quarter panel is kind of sprung out, and a couple other things, you know, so I assembled the whole back of the car with a tail panel fitting perfectly. The gaps are great, like Tony the Tiger, great. See, look at that. Same thing on the other side. Everything is good. Well, you have to weld the inside of the quarter panel to the trunk lid, or the trunk pan, and the trunk extension on the inside. Of course, I don't know if GM even calls that a trunk extension. They can call it whatever the hell they want. On Mopar land, I call it a trunk extension. So behind this, because this just overlays over this. This is not welded to the quarter panel right here. That's why they got that gap there. You can slide a penny through there. That's it. So, and I didn't want this to spring out or the other side to spring out. So what I did is I jigged it all, or I assembled the whole ass of the car, and then I just tack welded this brace here to keep the quarter panels from moving from either side. And then I put a couple Tex screws on the bottom to the trunk extension to hold it in place. That way, when I remove the tail panel and I weld up all underneath here, and then grind some of the welds down so that way it sits nice and flat. And then when I put the tail panel back in, but once all this is all welded down here, it ain't moving. So at least since I removed the tail panel, jigged it all, welded it up, then when I slid the tail panel back in, the gap stayed perfect. That's what I was worried about, was the gaps opening up if I tried to weld the quarters without the tail panels attached. So the jig helped with that. That's what actually held the car true. Yeah. Should be able to finish welding this whole thing up tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be a busy day. Anyways. Oh, I welded the package tray. That's all up to. Trying to figure out what else you missed out on. Yeah, that's about it. So, tomorrow. Alright. Let's see, a day and a half later, a day of welding and half a day of grinding. The 69 Z28 is done. Trucker's all assembled and ready to go. Get this GM crap out of here. Tom Wall.
Yep.
Nah, it's okay. I like GM cars too. But here, let's flip the camera around and show you everything that had to be done. Alright, as you saw in the previous video, I did have to splice down the quarter panel, shove it over, and then weld in the gap. And that was on both sides to close up the trunk lid gap, because it was a 1/2 inch both sides. Pretty much just everything's all tucked and welded together. I did have this piece here. You see those? There's two tack welds there, one there, and then there was one right here. I had a bar going across. You'll probably see pictures of it. I had to assemble the whole car, and then once the whole car was assembled, you know, I start welding shit together and tacking and screwing and all that crap. Well, the rear valence that's behind the tail panel has to get welded, and well, without the whole car assembled together, this quarter panel likes to spring out, and I didn't want that to affect my gap around the tail panel. So I welded that from side to side, which I think I explained that, so I won't go into too much detail on it. But that was just to hold my gaps. Let's see. Yeah, everything's just welded. You know, let's see. I welded it from the bottom. That way the top kind of resembles a spot weld. And if you weld it from the top, then you'll get that plug weld, which you have to grind down. So I welded it from underneath, which sucked, but oh well. You can see. That way they all kind of look like spot welds, flat. Same thing with here. Same thing, these are actually all flat. Let's see. I don't know if I can get a picture. Oh, well, here we go. Yeah, see, there you go. So they're all, so when you weld it from the bottom, they look all flat. See if I can flip that like that. You guys are probably getting dizzy. But yeah, whole car is assembled, welded, and done. So 169 Z28 gonna be back on the streets. Seat braces are welded back in, package tray. All right, so we had to do rear frame rails, trunk pan, trunk extensions, package tray, rear seat braces, quarter panels. The wheel houses are original, they weren't too bad. Rear window filler panel, tail panel, rear valence, the little quarter panel support braces that are on the inside. Can't really see them, but they're not nothing too special. I had to realign up the trunk hinge bracket. Let's see, I think that's about it. Total job took 2 weeks. That's every day. You know, just considered an 8-hour day. So, but all together. And as you saw, this car had nothing on it. The only thing it had on it was the original quarter panel. No trunk pan, no frame rails, no package tray, no nothing. There was nothing on this car from door jamb back. And then found out that the original quarter panel was garbage. So I told TJ, just get me another quarter panel. So he got me another one. Cut the old one off, put the new one on, put the other new one on. Yep. Oh, also had to put the trunk lock brace up there. Oh, I epoxied the insides of the inside structure while the quarter panel was off. So that's all epoxied up inside there. I lizard skinned both quarter panels while they were off the car. So yeah, pretty big size job, but it's all done. Just waiting for TJ to show up and get this turd out of here. Well, and that's that on the Camaro. Yeah, one day I'll get to putting my 67 RSSS Camaro together. Right now it's actually at TJ's shop, just kind of storing it there. That was my dad's Camaro, so I kind of inherited that. But I have everything new to put that Camaro together. Everything, even the red stripe tires on brand new, or on powder coated wheels. I mean, the entire car. So just gonna put an LS in that with, and it's a factory 4-speed car, so it's put the LS with a 4-speed, tilt wheel, fold down back seat, power windows. So it's a pretty cool car. But now that this is leaving, Leonard's 68 Charger's coming back in. That's a pretty beastly car right there. So Leonard's car's coming back in. I'll go pick it up tomorrow. Yep, that's that. So, end of the Z28. See you guys.